This is Larry Weisson, and you're listening to Outdoor Adventures with Jayson.
Welcome to Outdoor Adventures with Jayson. Each week, I bring the world of hunting, fishing, and conservation to you. From the great hunting and fishing opportunities found in the Americas to the dream safaris located on the dark continent and beyond. I'll introduce you to those who are already out in the field living every outdoor enthusiast's dream, as well as outfitters and gear manufacturers that can make those dreams your reality. Kill Instincts arrows are for the serious hunter, a company that understands the needs of the outdoorsman and provides 5 different styles of carbon fiber arrows, ranging from hunting to tournament arrows. If you want premium carbon fiber arrows, go to Kill Instincts, KILLNSTIX.com to review their carbon arrows. For listeners of the Outdoor Adventures with Jayson show, use promo code OUTDOORS to get 10% off your first order. Kill Instincts, where the blood trail begins. Welcome to this episode of Outdoor Adventures with Jayson. Today I want to welcome Justin Ragazine on. Justin has completed the North American Super Slam record put out by Ovis, and he did it as one of the youngest and fastest people to complete this achievement. And Justin, welcome to the show today.
Thank you, Jayson, for having me.
And what really caught my attention on this is, there's very few people that have ever done this record before, but you just released a book that's available through Amazon and Lulu.com for an ebook version of it, which is on your record or your quest to complete this record. Can you tell the listeners a little bit about just the Super Slam and then how you got interested in it?
Yeah, so the Super Slam of North America consists of successfully hunting 29 North American big game animals. They're broken down into categories of species of 5 different deer. There's 5 different caribou, 3 different moose, 4 of the sheep, 4 different bears, mountain lion, antelope, muskox, bison. I think that might be all 29. They do have, there's 6 different caribou and you only need 5 of them. They substitute a walrus in there somewhere if you're short on one of the species. It's basically a lifetime achievement award is what they consider it. And I've seen many hunters actually pass away due to older age that have had that 28 but didn't get the 29 due to the cost of either the desert bighorn, or some people just can't justify spending the money on the polar bear when you can't bring it back into the United States. For me, didn't know what the Super Slam was, never intended on doing it. At a Ovis convention, the GSCO convention. Basically, the first year I started doing the outfitted hunts. Second outfitted hunt I did was a Dall sheep hunt. I met a guy on that hunt, and he had finished his Grand Slam with Dall sheep. And we became, friends on the hunt, shared a lot of interest and had a great time. So he invited me to come out to the GSCO show when he got his Grand Slam award. And while I was there, they were having this conversation. This name kept going back and forth. Kept hearing Pat Garrett, who has become a great friend of mine, one of the funniest guys there is. They kept saying he was the youngest guy to achieve the Super Slam, and he had, achieved it that year. And I asked, I said, well, how old was he? And, they say, well, he's 35 years old. So me being, competitive, for some reason I'm competitive no matter what it comes down to. I was 32 years old at the time, and I had 3 of the animals already, which was a Dall sheep, a whitetail, and the black bear. Just sat there for a few minutes and started running the numbers and decided that for it to happen, I would have to take 26 animals over a 15-month period. I am self-employed. I have a construction company. So the biggest hamper for the hunter, from what I have seen in completing the North American Super Slam, is you either have the time and not the money, or you have the money and not the time. And being self-employed and doing, somewhat well in business, I decided I had the money and I was going to make the time because I wanted to be the youngest. So I left the show and I got to doing some research and started booking the hunts. That was about the start of it for me. And not only did I learn what the North American Super Slam was, but at the exact time I learned it, I decided I was going to do it.
Well, that's basically 2 animals a month that you needed to take. You must have built up some frequent flyer miles.
I'll tell you, I flew with United at the time, and I hit their 1K status quite quickly.
I would think so. So you decide you're going to do this. You sit down and you start to plan out. Were all of the remaining hunts, the 26 hunts you needed to do, outfitted so that you could get them done in a certain time frame?
Yes, I did the antelope. I did that kind of do it yourself. I have a cousin in Wyoming, and the whitetail I had shot, in my home state. Most of the animals, especially hunting in Alaska and Canada, you have to have an outfitter. So it's not something, that somebody can do completely on their own. It's not feasible. In Alaska, you can't hunt a grizzly bear. You can't hunt sheep on your own. So unless you're an Alaskan resident, so you have to have, a guide. And that was a big thing. I'm not a wealthy person by any means. There were things that I did on this trip to cut down, on budgeting. And, I slept on airport floors, and buying all my materials on my credit card is how I got all the flights. The one thing I didn't want to do was to take a hunt because it was a cheap hunt, to save money, because I knew for me to do this in that amount of time, I had to go with the right guys to make sure this was going to happen, because there was a lot of outfitters, and, nothing bad against any of them, but there's good ones, there's bad ones, just like in anything. The last thing I was looking for was a cheap hunt. I think that was a key to my success, was going with the right guys and finding, other ways to save money throughout. I took just about every animal I shot, I took home on the plane with me to save money from shipping and those things.
Of those 26 animals, polar bear and probably the desert bighorn sheep were probably two of the more difficult ones to set up quickly. They
were all fairly easy to set up because there's not a lot of people hunting polar bears, so there were some tags left over. The hardest one for me was the caribou in Quebec. The reason was I had purchased I think it was in March at a Northeast Michigan SCI chapter show. Over the phone, I purchased an auction tag for that caribou. About 2 weeks before my hunt, I called to complete and get it all set up. I think it might have been a little, more than 2 weeks, but I had found out that the government had cut back the tags due to the population. So what they had done is they had about 350 tags. They threw them into a bowl, so to speak, and drew out a certain amount of names. And if you didn't get drawn, you didn't get the tag. And that was for the outfitter that I had picked. I found that out with a couple weeks left in. So I hurry up. I got on the phone. I was actually in Alaska at the time on a hunt. I started Googling outfitters in Quebec, and luckily I found a guy that had a tag, and I got in there and got that one done. So that was probably the hardest one to get set up because they did cut back all the tags.
Can't remember. Was that called the Labrador herd or?
Yes.
Okay. I remember hearing, and that left a lot of people with a bad taste about hunting in Quebec because of the way some of that stuff went down.
Right. And they actually, this past year, this was the last year, 2017 was the last year that they're to be hunted for a certain amount of time, because they said the populations are down too low. And I spoke to hunters that were there this year, and they said the migrations were amazing. So I'm not sure how long it will be shut down, but I didn't see the migration. I got lucky and had a couple pass through, around our hunting area, and I took what I was able to get.
Tell me, and a lot of this I'm sure is detailed in the book, but for the listeners who, as you said, not many people hunt polar bears, tell a little bit about what that was like.
It was very cold. I went in February. It was definitely the coldest hunt I've ever done. People are always, the polar bear is almost extinct, and that's not true. The numbers have more than quadrupled in the last 30 years. When I got there, I had asked the local guide. I said, "Is it true that the polar bears are going towards extinction?" And he just laughed. And honestly, this is what he said. He goes, "You stupid Americans don't listen to us. We live here. You're listening to the wrong people asking, American scientists about this." He said there are more polar bears now than when I was a kid. It's just, I looked at the figures recently, and it said 30 years ago there was about 7,000, and now there's estimated to be about 30,000. So the numbers are there, and how they issue the tags, what people don't understand, they say, how could you shoot it? You're shooting an animal that's almost in extinct. What they've done, and I went to Pond Inlet just to save some money. Pond Inlet is a place where you can legally hunt polar bears. It's not allowed to be exported anywhere outside of Canada. For that reason, it was, about $10,000 cheaper. So I went there. The hunt, we saw, a couple. I shot mine on the fourth day. There was some issues on the hunt. It had nothing to do with the outfitter. I booked it through Canada North. They're amazing outfitters. And these guys, they're local Inuit people, and it's a different culture there. What I was saying is the government issues 30 polar bear tags to that village based on the population. It was 20 tags for male bears and 10 tags for female bears. So no matter what, around Pond Inlet, 30 bears are being shot. Whether it's the locals, hunters, doesn't matter. Nobody could stop it. 30 bears are going to be hunted. So what the locals do is they hunt so many for themselves, and then they sell so many tags so they have income. I mean, they get to keep the meat no matter what, so because we're not going to bring it home. The thing that people don't understand, the uneducated people, is that whether it's me going up there to hunt or a local, that bear is going to get shot no matter what, at least 30 of them. And that's all based on the number that the scientists or the population control does as they fly over and count the bears.
Yeah, that's what people forget is that we're not the only protectors of wildlife out there, and every country's got their own wildlife management areas for the most part, and they know better what's on the boots on the ground than a keyboard warrior is sitting in some part of the United States that just says, "Oh, I think polar bears are extinct, so Justin shouldn't have hunted that."
Right? No, they're not even close. But I will say that once I had harvested my bear, they say, "Oh, you've got to try it," and I'm not. I love meat. I eat tons of game. But there's certain animals that I choose not to eat. I don't eat, any of the cats, and I'm not a big fan of the bears because they tend to be, a greasy kind of meat. These guys had took some of the polar bear meat and some seal meat, and they threw it in a pot and boiled it. Just so I didn't offend them, I tried it, and it was the best meat. I've eaten meat all over the world on all these hunts. It was the best meat I've ever etten.
Really?
I was surprised. I was so surprised.
Did you try the seal as well?
No.
You backed off on that one, huh?
Yeah, I did. I didn't harvest the seal, so I had no issues with trying to eat it or not.
As you did this, now where did you hunt muskox at?
That was another hunt I also booked through Canada North, and I did that in Cambridge Bay.
Okay, so that was also done up in the Canadian areas. I guess it couldn't be done in Greenland to be considered part of the North American Slam.
No, you can. I believe because they're still part, Greenland's not that far off of Pond Inlet where I hunted the polar bear. Actually, the next landmass above Pond Inlet is Greenland. So I think they would consider it. The reason I chose to hunt it there was I comboed it with the Arctic island caribou.
Okay. Also done in winter, or was that done in a spring or summer?
I did it in October, and it was the second coldest hunt I've ever been on.
Okay, short of the polar bear.
So I couldn't imagine doing it, Right. Now, that if you book it a little later, I mean, it's much colder, but what happens is the water is all frozen. So you can go on to other land masses, and they say that there are bigger muskox in those areas. But me personally, I would rather have shot the one I shot than wait until it was colder because I did it with a bow.
Oh, which is very challenging.
The muskox, and you'll see it in pictures when they're all huddled up together. That's exactly what they did. Once we found them and located them, as we got closer, there was maybe 12 to 15 of them. They huddled all up into a big group like that. And it was just waiting until the biggest male in there, presented a shot. And it took a little while. So what I did is I stayed all bundled up. And as they started to move a little bit, I took off my big jacket and, so it wouldn't affect, the flight of the arrow, and that's when I decided to take the shot.
Were you able to try the meat off of the muskox?
Yes, we ate it in camp. I'm
assuming it tasted fine like any other big game animal.
Right. It's almost, I don't think they classify it as a bovine. I believe they do. So it has that, it doesn't taste like beef. And the way they cooked it, they boiled it in a pot with some vegetables. So I think when you boil a meat, it kind of takes some of the flavor out of when you just cook it in a pan. But it was good. We had, there was nobody that had any complaints about it.
Outline a little bit for everybody what they'll find when they start to book, if you don't mind.
So basically what I did is, and I had, to be honest with you, I'm not a writer. I had no desire to write a book, never even thought about it. And one guy on Facebook, every time I'd go on a hunt, he kept asking, are you going to write a book? You should write a book. And when I got about 3/4 of the way through, I said, you know what? I might as well. Why not? So I just started. I didn't really start writing it until I was just about done. I just started from the very first hunt, kind of journaled it all the way through, even though I didn't have a journal written. For me, it was effortless, to go all the way back to the very first hunt and write it down. I mean, it was just reliving it as I wrote it. So, for me, I could tell you I've shot over 150 species of animals. And I could tell you, I could rewrite every single one of them. It sticks with me because it's my true passion. So I never forget any of it. So, it's chapter 1 through 29 of all 29 animals. And in the back, I've got a chapter on, with some hunting tips for anybody who's interested in not necessarily hunting all 29, but just hunting any of them. There's a few things I learned along the way, and I wanted to put that in there. And, if I could help, one person out, from making a mistake, it's worth it for me.
Oh, yeah. And for the listeners, if you hit the show notes up, you'll find a link to both ordering the hardcover version off of Amazon or the ebook version of it off of lulu.com. So both of those will be right there, and you can go out and order Justin's book to go through it. I'll also have links to both his Facebook page and Instagram page, where you'll just see some amazing pictures of his past animals and trophies that he's taken. At this point, Justin, I wanted to transition a little bit from the North American animals, and there's some I'd like to come back to. Tell the listeners a little bit about other areas that you've hunted, because it's not just focused on North America for you.
I had no desire ever to hunt anywhere other than Ohio and out west, and never thought I would, for that matter. I booked a hunt because other than starting the Super Slam, I only hunted in Ohio, Wyoming once for mule deer, and then every other year in my early 20s, I would go with my family out to Colorado, and we'd do a do-it-yourself elk hunt with horses and tents. And once I had booked my first outfitted hunt for black bear, the people I hunted with up there had a friend from New Zealand that did all the New Zealand animals, chamois, tahr, and fallow deer and whatnot. So I decided to give that a shot back in 2012, and I went over and had an amazing time with him and shot a whole bunch of stuff. And what people don't realize is during the 2 years that I was hunting North America, actually it was about 15 months that I did the 26 animals. I also hunted New Zealand. I hunted in South Africa. I hunted in Mozambique. I hunted in Tajikistan, Pakistan, and I think Australia. So there was no grass growing under my feet. But that's just me being competitive. Once I got into that international hunting, it just opened this door to these amazing animals and amazing places. What I had decided was I wanted to hunt every country that I could for every, different animal. And I've been to, I believe, 20 or 21 countries, and I've taken just over 150 species of animals. What had happened, everybody kept asking me, it was almost like, are you going to write a book? Are you going to write a book? Everybody asked me, where I was going to put all these animals. Because what people, don't know is that I life-size everything. Every international animal that I've hunted, I've life-sized it.
Oh, wow.
And now I'm looking back through the North American ones that I didn't shoot a trophy. I'm going to go back and try to hunt a trophy animal to do a life-size. So basically what I came up with, because I live in a very small house, like I said, I'm not a wealthy person. I spend all my money on hunting. I had nowhere to put all these animals. So several years ago, I come up with an idea to do a indoor archery range as a business with a wildlife museum on the inside of it. A lot of these big international hunters have all these trophies in their house. Other than a few close friends, they sit there and look at it, themselves. I didn't want to do that, especially life-sizing these animals. There's some of these animals you look at the face, you look at the horns, and that's trophy. But you get into some of these other, especially in Africa, and you see the stripes and the spots, and just the common water buck has a ring on its rump that looks almost like a target. You don't see that on these shoulder mounts. And I said, I got to life size that. On my first safari in Africa, I just hunted in South Africa. I took, I think, 18 different species, and about halfway through the safari, they just stopped asking if I was going to life size it and just assumed that I was going to. So I wanted to do something that could allow everybody to enjoy it. And I'm in the process now of hopefully realizing that goal and that dream through an investor. I've got a friend helping me, and we're just about there. So the international hunting isn't for everybody. A lot of people question the safety. And for me, I believe I went to Kyrgyzstan in October, and everybody, why would you go there? It's so dangerous. And while I was there, the shooting in Las Vegas happened. It doesn't matter where the people I meet in these countries are absolutely amazing. Everybody in the hunting industry tends to be a genuinely good person. And it's not, even traveling to Pakistan, that might be the most dangerous country in question of safety. I've never ran into anything that would even put my life in jeopardy. They're such good people, and they were so happy to have me there. The people that I would be concerned about for my safety are also the people that those same people that helped me have concerns about. It's just not me being an American that puts me in danger. It's anybody that doesn't believe in what a terrorist believes, their lives are in danger. And that is for everybody that I hunted with. I mean, it's just the way it is. And I will not sit at home and hope I'm going to be safe. It's a big world. And that really is what put me into the international hunting. It's such a big world. There's so many animals out there, and I wanted to be a part of all of it. So I just started going on certain hunts, and there's a lot of hunts. I'm getting to the point now where a lot of the animals that I need are in that upper price range, and it's just hard for me to get there right now. I've taken some amazing animals. I've been to some amazing places, and I've met the most amazing people out there on these hunts.
Yeah, I completely agree. I had the opportunity to hunt international one time so far, and I spent 9 days in Zimbabwe. It was an absolute amazing experience. Never did I stop and think, oh, I feel like I'm in danger. The people were gracious. The hunting was amazing. As you mentioned, I took a common water buck, and I have no idea what I'm going to do with it, but I have a tanned water buck rear end hide here at the house that is one. I'll do something with it because the stripe around it was such a cool thing. I'm like, I'd hate to just waste that. It's just too neat. So it'll get turned into something one day. I don't know what, but
right. Yeah,
that was the same thing as I brought back the animals, and I hope to one day return and get things like, as you mentioned, a Nyala. The markings on a Nyala are just amazing.
Absolutely. I just returned myself from Zimbabwe after Thanksgiving. I went over with Cliff Walker Safaris for a lion, and after it was my fourth trip. I've got 46 days into it, and I was very fortunate on the first evening to finally connect on a mature male lion, and what a relief that was. It was almost, I'm a Leo, and everybody kept asking me, how could you hunt a lion? That's your sign. And I'm like, I'm a hunter. I don't get into that kind of crazy stuff. And it was almost like that was my nemesis. Everybody had as far as the big cats, the lion was the easy one. The leopard was the hard one. And it was almost reversed for me. I've been on 4 lion hunts. It took me my 4th trip to get one. I've been on 2 leopard hunts. I've sat in the blind for a total of 3 days that totaled maybe 5 hours. And I've shot 2, mature leopards. So it was kind of reversed. And on my second leopard, he said to me, he goes, oh, but you didn't get a lion, but look how lucky you are to get another leopard. You don't understand. This lion is such a big deal to me. I'm not concerned about getting another leopard, but it finally all came together on this last trip.
Now, what type of gun did you use to take the lion?
I used a 375 that they had in camp, and I chose to do that only because in that part of Zimbabwe, hunting with a bow is not permitted. I really wanted to do a line with a bow, just for a self-accomplishment from, my own self. I wanted to do it with a bow, and he said just before the trip, oh, I'm sorry, you're not allowed. To me, hunting in Africa, a 375 is a 375. It's not a long-range gun. You're not shooting far with it. So I decided to save myself a hassle this trip and travel without a gun. And I went there with a backpack and a carry-on bag with a camera in it. It was the smoothest travel I've ever done. However, a lot of the hunting I do is mountain hunting, so I do take my own gun because, sometimes you've got to reach out there at 400 and 500 yards, and I don't feel comfortable doing that with somebody else's gun.
No, you want what you're used to.
Right.
Now, what part of Zimbabwe were you in to take that lion?
I hunted in the Savi Valley Conservancy.
Okay.
And just before I went, there was some, I wouldn't call it, a war, but they had some protests and some violence going on in the capital. And fortunately for me, I flew into another city that was outside of that capital. I mean, we drove for 5 hours from the airport to the hunting concession, other than some locals and, a few goats and donkeys. We didn't see anything at all. So it is safe. I mean, no outfitter is going to allow a hunter to come to their country and put their life in danger. It's not something that any of these outfitters do. And I've had hunts where I actually canceled a hunt because the outfitter said, listen, at this time, this region, I don't think it's safe. It's not all about the money. They don't care, they're not going to take your money and then put your life in danger. That's just not the kind of people we're dealing with.
Yeah, not only that, it's bad business, and it's bad for everybody involved.
Right. And as well as I do that, this is not a big industry. The hunting industry is probably one of the smallest industries in sport. Word travels fast. It's amazing when one bad, hunt happens, everybody hears about it. There's so many forums today, and, when you go to these shows, it's just not, these guys know that. And the ones that do conduct bad hunts, they don't last long at all.
No, and as you said, it's small. And as a hunter, I can certainly accept the idea that, well, we had a rough run with finding the game. The animals aren't controlled that way. So there's only so much that the outfitter can be responsible for. But you also know that if you arrive in camp and it's shoddy or these other things go down, you know that this was probably not good to begin with.
Correct.
So tell us, what did you hunt in Pakistan?
So I've been to Pakistan twice. I've hunted on the first trip, I hunted a Blanford Uriel and a Sind Ibex. And then on my second trip, I went back with Pierre Danish from Indus Safaris. And he is, anybody that had any concerns about hunting in Pakistan, Pierre Danish is absolutely hands down the best guy. He's in the government. He's well connected. He's with you on the hunt, which to me is the most important thing. So when I went back on my second trip and hunted with him, we hunted the Punjab Uriel, Himalayan Ibex. I took a Chinkara gazelle, a hog deer, Asian wildcat, an Indian wild boar.
Wow.
And so all I have left in Pakistan is a blue sheep and some of the indigenous animals, such as the nilgai, which is found in Texas.
Mm-hmm.
They've got a black buck, an axis deer, and then a Kenyan gazelle also. I don't know if that's the only place they're indigenous, but I know for sure that those animals are indigenous. And what I've started recently is when I'm going on these hunts, due to, hopefully opening this museum, I've started to take a lot of the smaller animals that normally people wouldn't hunt, such as when I was in Zimbabwe. We went out in the evenings, and I shot a white-tailed mongoose, a spring hare. I took an Egyptian goose, and those things, it made it so much fun to go out and do that. When you're on a hunt like a lion hunt, and you've got that stress of, oh, am I going to get a lion or not? Because you pay for it, whether you get one or not. To go out and add some fun taking these smaller animals has just added a whole new dimension to hunting for me.
Oh, yeah, I bet. I was able to take a clip springer, which was a small antelope, and it was just a matter of luck that we happened to find that particular clip springer. In many ways, they're harder to hunt than the bigger animals. They move faster, they blend in quicker.
Right.
They're there,
Definitely.
and by the time I got a scope on that clip springer, he had already moved. It's not like putting a scope on an eland,
Right. Yeah.
They kind of don't blend in as well. So, yeah, I think those small antelope are very challenged, the smaller animals, and they're often overlooked.
Yeah, definitely. I've gotten into the dikers a lot recently, and man, it's a small animal, but they're so beautiful. I was very fortunate to take a zebra diker, and a lot of people, go several times, and most people don't even get one. So to get one of those was a big deal for me, and I've got a hunt this year I'm going to go on where I've got a chance at 4 other species, and I think I've taken, 10 or 11 of them so far, and, they're just such beautiful little creatures.
Now, that means you'll have to start to eventually head up into the Ghana and some of those jungle areas to get the dikers up in that area.
Right. This hunt will be in Gabon.
Okay.
So it's getting in there, and I've done Liberia where I did take the zebra diker, and I took a bay diker and a Maxwell diker also.
Now, what about the largest eland? Is that on your map, or have you already done it?
I leave 4 days after Safari Club.
Oh, all right. So, yes, it's on your radar.
It's on my radar. I've taken all the other ones. I've taken a Cape, eland down in South Africa. I've taken a Livingston eland. I've taken an East African eland. I've life-sized the Livingston and the East African. I will go back. I did say I've life-sized all my international animals, but the Cape eland I didn't, and I regret it. So I'm going to do that one again. On this upcoming trip, which will be my next hunt in Cameroon, will be for the Lord Derby eland, a Sing Sing waterbuck, the Western cob, red diker, and a Western bush diker. I'm also, due to the museum, I'm getting into some of the monkeys, which in Gabon is going to be an amazing trip. But in Cameroon, they've got the puttis monkey, and then I'm going to try for the olive baboon also.
How long will you be gone for?
I believe it's a 14-day hunt.
I think one of the main areas for the Lord Derby, is it not?
You've got the 2 hunts are either in northern Cameroon or in Central African Republic, and it's just not advised to go to Central African Republic. It's just too dangerous. Quality of animals in the CAR, the quality is a lot better. You get those 50, inch plus bulls, but I tell, all my guides on my hunts, whether it's a mountain hunt in some steep terrain or, a hunt that would be in for the Lord Derby eland, my life, there's no animal out there that is worth putting, my life on the line for. So if I've got to settle for a slightly smaller animal and go to a safer place, that's what I'm going to do.
Yeah, that keeps your hunting going forward.
Correct.
So we've got all these amazing animals. Where is this museum going to be located at?
So it'll be in my hometown of Youngstown, Ohio. It's kind of a low cost living there, and there's not a lot going on, and so people question, why would you put it there? The key is the location, because it is in the middle of everything. You know, within a 60-mile radius, there's over 6 million people, and it's towns like Cleveland and Pittsburgh and Akron, Canton, you know, all of Western PA. It's right in the center of everybody. So rather than putting it in a big city like Cleveland, you know, you're missing out on all of Western Pennsylvania. So, you know, to have something like that, you know, people will drive an hour. You know, that's not an issue for people to see. So the location is absolutely perfect. The highway intersections all meet right where this is going to go. It's easy to get to. When it is out, I'm hoping, you know, in the next 2020, it'll be up and going. I've got to build the building because there's just nothing out there. Most commercial buildings are 15.5-foot ceiling height, and this one's going to be 30 to incorporate the mountains for the sheep and stuff like that. So it's going to take a little bit longer, but in the end, it's going to be worth it.
And this will also include indoor archery?
Yes. Like I said, I'm not a wealthy person, so I had to focus on having a business to make it possible. So it'll include an indoor archery range, which will have, you know, the paper targets during the week, and then on the weekends we're going to open it for a 3D course from a range of animals. Doing my research, I've found about 150 different 3D targets so far. So we'll interchange about 25 out a week. You know, that way you won't see the same target for about a 5-week period. And there's going to be a pro shop, and there's going to be seminar rooms and a warming kitchen. It's going to be a complete, everything archery is going to be there.
Oh, wild. That'll be quite the destination to come from all that Midwest area.
Right. You know, and they just opened that museum in Missouri that Johnny Morris from Bass Pro Shops opened. It's gigantic. The difference will be, these are all my animals. This is something I've done. So even though that is the largest place, this will be a destination in itself. It'll be all, you know, other than obviously needing an investor because, you know, it's out of my price pocket to do it. It'll be, you know, all basically what I've done and accomplished inside that place. Where I'm at in Ohio, I'm right on the border of Pennsylvania, and that's why I chose archery. Between the two states, they sell about 500,000 archery tags a year. So I'm right in the heart of bow hunting because of our season. Most people have a 2-week archery season. Our archery season opens at the end of September and closes the 1st of February. You know, if you enjoy hunting, the common thing is just to get a bow because you can hunt so long.
Yeah, Ohio is synonymous with also all the crossbow manufacturers for the most part.
Right.
Being that the bulk of them are either there or started there before they may have moved. So it's a strong influence. So tell the listeners, what kind of equipment when it comes to bows do you tend to choose? What do you look for?
You know, at the moment I shoot the Hoyt bow, it's just everything, you know, when it comes to finding a bow, it's really a personal preference. You know, everybody, you know, you got the guys that like Matthews, the guy that like Hoyt, guys that like Bowtech. It's just really, you know, what your preference is. I mean, I think every manufacturer makes a bow that everybody would enjoy, but it's just, you know, sometimes, you know, it's, oh, well, I love Michael Waddell. I love watching his shows, and he shoots this bow, so that's what I want to use. You know, it really, you know, it's everybody's, you know, personal preference. I shoot the Hoyt. I like it. It just fits in my hand well. It shoots well. So that's what I choose. But we'll offer every bow that manufacturer that we're allowed to sell, we will have there. It's not, you know, going to be, well, we only specialize in this bow. So if we have X and you want Y, you have to go here and buy it. I don't want that to happen. So I want everybody to focus and buy their product and shoot their product at our place.
Now, shifting back to your Super Slam here from North America, because there's animals in there that people think and dream about hunting, and just, as you said, they might have the time but not the resources, or vice versa. Where did you take like your moose? Where can people read about hunt when they read your book about your moose hunt?
So it just depends which species of moose. You know, we'll start, there's 3 different moose that you need. There are 4 different moose that you could hunt. So one is a Shiras moose. I took mine with a bow. Now, my Shiras moose is not recognized by Pope and Young because I shot it in Canada. And they draw a line for the Shiras moose that's just north of Calgary, Alberta. And everything below that is a Shiras moose. So I didn't have the time or the money. Well, I should say I didn't have the time to draw a Shiras moose tag in the state, and I didn't have the money to buy a governor's tag. So I went to Alberta, where you can buy, you know, a tag and hunt with an outfitter, and it's 100% a Shiras moose. I mean, everything about it is Shiras moose. So the second moose is Canadian moose. I shot mine in British Columbia, and I comboed mine on the mountain goat hunt. That is the Western Canadian moose, or you can go to Newfoundland and shoot an Eastern Canadian moose. Then you've got the Alaska Yukon moose. I chose to do mine in the Yukon, and I combined that with a mountain caribou. It's just a preference of, what outfit do you want to go with? They've got giant moose in Alaska, they've got giant moose in the Yukon. I had shot my caribou in Alaska already, so my pick was obviously to go to the Yukon so I can get that mountain caribou at the same time.
Both done with a rifle?
Did my Yukon moose and my Canadian moose with a rifle, and then I did the Shiras moose with the bow.
I guess there's opportunities to hunt the Yukon and Alaskan moose with a bow. That has to be...
I had a bow with me, correct. I did have my bow. It would have been ideal for me to shoot all 29 with a bow. However, to do it in 2 years is absolutely impossible. It's not even... Anybody that would think they could do that is just, out of their mind. So on most of my hunts, I took a bow, a muzzleloader, and a rifle. I wanted to do it with a bow, but to do it in that time frame, I just didn't have the time. I probably could have. I shot my moose on the first day. I probably could have done it with a bow, but having that, it was the most stressful thing I've done. I mean, having to get that animal and not, being able to leave without it. There were some hunts where I just had to set the bow aside and just do it with a rifle. A lot of people were asking me, well, you're doing all this at such a young age. What are you going to do afterwards? I'm going to go back and do it with a bow.
Yeah, now you've got the time, to focus with just a bow.
Right.
Well, that was quite an accomplishment to do so much in such a short amount of time. And you've joined an extremely elite group. I think there's less than 160 people registered with the Super Slam of North America. So you're in a small group. They have to be a fun get-together when you folks and share stories. Congratulations.
Thank you. The GSCO convention is not the biggest convention, but a lot of these guys are there, and it is fun to sit down and kind of talk about what you shot, where you shot it. And I didn't do this to say, hey, look at me. It was just a personal thing. I wanted to be the youngest person. Like I said, being competitive, it was the most competitive thing I've ever done, the most challenging thing. And a lot of people say, it's not about the awards, and you're right, it's not. It's about love of the sport. Hunting is my true passion. I've been hunting my entire life. But for somebody that is competitive, it's just an added bonus.
Sure.
It's more of a self-accomplishment for me. I set out to do a goal, and I did it. And, if they offer an award, I'm going to go up on stage and collect, and I do that for the benefit of that convention. That's just supporting GSCO. Those guys that want to sit back and, I'm not in it for the award. You don't have to be, but go to the convention, turn in, your sheets and be recognized for it. Because not only are you doing it for the convention, you're doing it for the justice of that animal. And that's how it is for me. And GSCO is a great organization. I'm glad to be a part of it. If I didn't record all those animals and I didn't collect that award, it would be taking away from GSCO. That's why they're there. They are there to document those animals for the hunter and issue those awards. And I encourage everybody, if you're going, to hunt all 29 animals, clearly you should document it and be recognized for it. It's a great accomplishment. I felt that when I got my award, I didn't want those hunters that have spent 30, 40, 50 years trying to accomplish this. I didn't want it to be like, oh, hey, look at me. I did it in 2 years. I just wanted to be the youngest person, so I had to do it in 2 years. If the youngest person would have been 38, I wouldn't have done it in 2 years. That would have taken my time. Like I said, that the ultimate goal was to be the youngest Super Slammer. So in order to do that, I had to crunch it in 27 months and get it done. And I'm sure, there are people out there that will be, younger down the road. I mean, I might probably be the youngest to do it, kind of done it on their own. Nobody helped me through this. I have a business that I started on my own. I paid for everything on my own. The one thing I know that will stand, and they said it during the convention, it made me feel good that nobody will ever do it in that time frame. It sits well with me to know that I went out and accomplished that. Nobody handed that to me. And that's a big deal for me that I was able to not only be a Super Slammer, but to just go out and hammer it and be successful at all the hunts. And I did have to do 2 hunts over again. I had to do the mountain goat and the mountain lion over again. The mountain lion, I just didn't see one, and the mountain goat, I had an issue with my gun. However, that happened in the first year of trying, so I was able to rebook it for the next year. Why it was so stressful was in that that second year, if there was any animal that I didn't get, it was going to keep me from, reaching my goal. I think I just made a post about that, that bighorn sheep hunt that I did with a bow. I mean, I was thinking I was going to be in there, for, 5 days. It's the only place in North America you could hunt bighorn sheep during the rut. Therefore, you have to do it with a bow. I mean, I missed 3 times. I'm not ashamed to say it. They were long shots. They were uphill, straight downhill. I hit a branch on one of the shots. I actually had my desert bighorn sheep was the following hunt, and I had to push the hunt back. I called the outfitter and told him I was going to be late because I couldn't leave Alberta, and so it would turned out to be was going to be a 5-day hunt. I shot him on day 15, and I shot him the day I shot him the day I was supposed to arrive in Mexico. And so I went home. I took all my cold gear out. I packed all my warm gear. I got in the truck. I went to the airport and I flew to Mexico. And that's where I hunted my desert bighorn sheep. That was the most challenging hunt. One of the things that was weighing on me was my last animal. The number 29 animal was a Sitka deer up in Alaska. And I kept saying to myself, I can't believe I did that. I've got this great accomplishment. I'm using the Sitka deer as my last animal. I should have made it something bigger. I almost didn't get one. That hunt, the time I went, we had bad weather and I landed and the outfitter said, you know what, I don't want to discourage you, but the weather is not cooperating. It's not great weather for this hunt. And I didn't take a giant deer, but I took the only one I saw. So I was very fortunate.
Yeah, sometimes that's the way the cards are dealt, but that's why it's hunting. And just the fact that you accomplished it is amazing. The animals that you're going to be sharing those with people, there are people all around the United States that will never know what a blue sheep is when you're lucky enough to take one of those, or to be able to see a life-size representation of it when they head to your place, maybe 100 or 200 miles from their home, when they know they'll never travel to go to see that in the wild. What an opportunity for school kids to come in and actually appreciate the wildlife and ways to help be conservationists for it, not preservationists for it, be actual conservationists of it, allow the animal populations to grow through, wise use. So it's really a great thing. And not only that, but expose them to archery, expose them to the joys of shooting a bow.
The more I get, the closer I get to this, the educational part of it is becoming bigger than I ever imagined. The way we're going to have this set up is just going to be amazing for kids. Today, with the Archery in the Schools program, what we plan to offer is a complete field trip where they get to tour the museum, they get an archery lesson, just 100% educational for these kids. And I think the positive impact it'll have, I'm not expecting every child to go out and want to get a bow or want to be a hunter. I want them to be educated, because that is the problem. I get these anti-hunters, and to listen to the words that come out of their mouth, it screams uneducated. And when you sit down and have a 5-minute conversation with them, they say, oh, I didn't know that. Right. So they're talking, they're making an argument, they're insulting people, and they have no idea what they're even talking about. So it will be just a goal of mine is to make sure that I can educate as many children as possible so they don't go out and view this negativity about the outdoors and hunting that's not true.
Which is so needed. I can go onto Facebook and post the picture of the giraffe that I took in Zimbabwe, and all the love messages from the antis come rolling in at that point.
Right.
What you mentioned with the polar bear is the same with the giraffe in that particular part of Zimbabwe. On that ranch, 40 to 50 of them were going to die that year, whether I shot it or not, because of overpopulation.
Right.
Unlike,
Correct.
Say, oh, wow, there's too many whitetail in southern Ohio. Let's gather some up and move them to western Ohio. There is no money to do that with the giraffe. So while there are some declining populations of them, you can't just say, oh, I'll just stick these 50 giraffe in a truck and move them to Kenya or wherever. It doesn't happen.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, I shot mine for a completely different reason than you shot yours. And I shot mine, I had no desire to shoot a giraffe. My first safari to South Africa, it wasn't even in the back of my mind. And we were driving around through the concession, probably the most amazing place in South Africa, 6,000-acre concession that is just absolutely a dream to hunt. And you get this whiff of this air that was just horrific. And I asked, I said, what is that? And they said, well, we're going to drive, and we drove up and, it was a dead giraffe. And then the next day we drive in and, it hits you again. Well, what is that? And, we drive a little further and there's another dead giraffe. So I asked, well, why are these giraffes dying? And he said it's competition. Giraffe bulls, if you have never seen a giraffe bull fight, I highly recommend you Google it and watch a YouTube video and watch these animals fight. So what they told me was that these young bulls, would get into these fights with an older bull, and once a bull was so old, it just could not handle the impact and the severity of these fights. So I said, I tell you what, this place has a ton of giraffe. Let's get up on a high point and let's just spend a morning glassing and pick out a really old, mature bull, and I'll take one, because you have a quota. Somebody's going to come in and take it. It might as well be me. So that's what we did, and I life-sized him, and he'll be in the museum someday. That you have to control a population, whether it's a white-tailed deer or a giraffe. They all need to be controlled. It's the wild, and without that, they're going to run out of food. There's going to be disease that's going to be spread, and it's imperative that all species of animals have to be controlled. And some of the greatest stories of hunting and controlling animals and getting them back to where they're at today is probably the Markhor in Pakistan. I mean, these animals were hunted for meat all the way down to maybe 200-300 animals left. And these outfitters stepped in and said, wait a minute, you've got a valuable commodity here. Over, 4, 5, 6 years of, hunting and conservation, those 300 animals are now 4,000. And you see these locals are protecting them with their life because the money that they're generating from these tags, astronomical. And, so when they have that money coming in, they don't have to go out and shoot them all. They have money they can buy other food to survive on. And now, an animal that was set to be soon, I think is flourishing, all because a hunter stepped in.
As most people that have hunted a giraffe know, well, at least some are very challenging, but this particular hunt, I took the giraffe with a rifle. It was not challenging as far as where I had to walk miles and miles and miles. I'm handicapped, so I couldn't do that. And I was lucky enough to be the first hunter on that concession for that safari season. So the animals were not afraid of people really at that point. They were more curious. Right. We drove around for a long time and came across this bull, and they knew he was there, and he was an old, what is called a stink bull, and he was dark black from covering himself and his waist, and he literally stunk. Once they cleaned him and got him all skinned out, you should have seen how busted up his skull was from fighting and calcified knots
so
from
brutal.
Healing it up. And they said, these are the kind of bulls we want removed because they'll kill the younger ones with no thought about it. They'll get in there and beat them and stomp them to death. This bull was well over 25 years old, they estimated. He was no longer a viable breeding bull, and his meat, some went to market and some went to some of the local villages to try and keep their cattle off the concession so that the native livestock, the native animals, could continue to flourish. So I'm like you. When I got over there, I was like, giraffe. I've got no intentions of shooting a giraffe, but it just kind of was one of those opportunities that presented itself, and I said, let's do this. And I enjoy it. I weighed the skull. Just the skull alone from that animal weighs 24 pounds.
It's amazing, the size, yeah. When you get up to that animal and see it, it just, the TV and the pictures don't do it justice. And that was the same thing with my lion, to walk up and see how enormous that cat was. I had no desire to eat my giraffe. I have no desire to try my lion. But the locals were absolutely thrilled when they could not wait to get that meat back to their house, and especially in Africa. They're derived of protein that's just not, on the table for them. It's poor all over Africa. Without the hunters supplying not only, funds for the animal, but that meat, it's absolutely key to the survival of all the animals in Africa. Because as well as anybody that's been to Africa, if it was not for the hunters, there wouldn't be an animal walking today in Africa. They would be completely wiped out.
You'd have just goats and cattle.
Simply because the poaching is unbelievable. The wire harnesses, and there's thousands and thousands of wire harnesses across Africa. People don't believe that, but like I said, when I got to Zimbabwe, I drove for 4.5 hours from the airport to the hunting concession, and it was all bush, just a road, a cheaply paved road all the way, and there was bush as far as you can see. You know how many animals I saw in 4.5 hours? Not a single animal until I got to the hunting concession, because the animals in the concession are protected by anti-poaching patrol.
Right.
That's paid for by hunters' dollars. There's no anti-poaching anti-poaching patrol outside of the concession, everything is gone. And if there was no hunting, the same thing would happen to all those hunting conservancies. They would just be completely wiped out of all animals. So people don't realize that. If it wasn't for us, and then people always say to me, well, why don't you just donate the money and not go on the hunt? Why don't you? I hunt. That's what I do. That's what I paid for. I'm not in it for, charity. Dollars that I spent for the hunt did go to that cause, to those anti-poaching patrols. But these anti-hunters, they'll run their mouth all day long, but when it comes time to open the pocketbook, they're nowhere to be found.
Oh, yeah. There was one famous hunter that offered to take anybody that would pay the same fee as a hunter on a no-kill Cape buffalo hunt. And they would go in, they'd photograph it, and he would treat them to just an amazing time. And they could take all the photographs of the Cape buffalo, and he would make sure that Cape buffalo stayed protected. He had zero people take him up on that. They can twist, they can, use, and statistics are statistics. They can be made to show whatever you want them to show for the most part. But unless you're putting money in pockets and boots on the ground, you've really got to take your opinion with a big sense of skepticism, because, and not yours, but just anybody in general, that if you have not been there, it's not like going to your local zoo. It's not the Lion King movie.
Exactly.
This money is vitally needed. So if you want to do something and you're an anti-hunter, give money. Otherwise, don't knock the people that are really doing and putting money out there. I don't think any hunter is stupid enough to think that 100% of the fees that they pay go to any local.
Oh, they don't.
The outfitters have to
Absolutely
make money.
Not.
The outfitters have to run their business. The outfitters have to pay for the anti-poaching patrols, because the governments don't have the money to pay for those anti-poaching patrols. Those are all privately funded.
The government doesn't get all of the government gets all the money. No, the government gets the money for the permit that they sell, which is just a small fee. The rest of it, you're right, it goes into the anti-poaching. It goes into the camps are absolutely amazing. There are, 4 or 5-star camps, all through Africa if you go with the right people. And that money comes from hunters. The staff that's employed there, these people would have no job. Now they're cooks, there's maids, there's people cleaning up around the camp all day long. There's skinners, there's trackers. That is all paid for by hunters' dollars. When I was in Zimbabwe, the place I was at had the wild dogs of Africa, I saw about 15 of them in person. The most beautiful animal there is. It's those dollars that are going in to protect them. They're going in there to protect the rhino. That's the biggest. Today, for every rhino born, there's a rhino that poach. So they're not going to increase in population, and without the hunter's dollars, that's an animal that could go extinct in my lifetime because of the value of that horn, which is absolutely useless and pointless. The Chinese that think it's some kind of miracle thing, but all it is keratin, like your fingernails. And they're paying about $50,000 a pound for that rhino horn. So got somebody that is in Africa that's extremely poor, and now you offer them $3,000 to go shoot a rhino, they're not going to think twice about it. It's probably a lifetime's worth of income. Without the hunter's dollars, those anti-poaching patrols would not be there. And without the anti-poaching patrol, there would be no rhino left. So it all trickles down and comes from the hunter. So whether you agree with it or not, that's just facts are facts, and those are the facts.
I think one of the things that absolutely floors me is I can understand, I don't agree with it, but I can understand when a hunter gets attacked by an anti-hunter. But then when you have the other hunters going after the hunters, it always makes me shake my head. And that's a whole nother topic. I don't want to go into it, off on a tangent, but if it's a legally sanctioned,
it happened on my lion hunt.
If it's a legally sanctioned animal, I don't understand why people here in the United States think that they should be able to tell Zimbabwe or South Africa what animals are to hunt. They're not telling us not to hunt whitetail because they only see them in zoos.
Exactly. And that what you just said is the reason we as hunters will never win the fight, because we can't stick together.
Right. Yeah, and that's that whole hypocritical thing. Just if it's a legally sanctioned hunt, well, I might not have any interest in whatever that particular animal is. It's a legally sanctioned, permitted hunt. Go for it. If that's what you want to do, I got no problem, and I'll back you because you're doing it legally and you're paying the money that needs to be paid for whatever animal it is.
Right. Yeah, exactly. I'm athletic to a point. I've never played the sport of soccer. I've never had a desire to, but that doesn't mean that I would tell somebody that they're a horrible person or wish death upon them because they enjoy playing soccer. Everybody's entitled to their own opinion. I did it, and I know we're not going to get into this. I'll just say this. I had so many people tell me, oh, I'm a hunter myself. Why would you shoot a lion? Because I'm a hunter, and that's what I wanted to hunt, and that's all there is to it.
Right. People really need to understand, in a lot of cases, elephants, the big cats, and I shouldn't say for all Africans, but for a lot of sentiment you see is they'd like to see those animals gone. They are too much competition either with or for their livestock. So those are animals that are not necessarily valued unless there's a monetary amount put on their head. You might not like it, but if the animal has a monetary value placed upon it, it will be protected. That monetary value is removed. You've done the exact opposite you wanted to in the conservation. That you've just signed that animal's death warrant.
And the perfect example is Botswana. When they shut down elephant hunting in Botswana, poaching went up 400%. They were actually, they got to the point where they were poisoning the water holes, so it killed the elephant. Therefore, everything that ate off of that elephant, because the only thing that gets taken is the ivory. Now, when you hunt an elephant, you could not, now this is the biggest land animal in the world. When somebody shoots an elephant, you can go back there 2 or 3 days later and never even know that an animal was shot there. However, when they poach one, you could go back there for months and months and months and see that thing just rotting, and nothing good coming of it except they cut out that ivory and took that ivory. So when those poachers poisoned those water holes and it killed the elephant, it also killed everything that ate on it.
Exactly.
So people just don't understand it. They're not there firsthand. They don't see it. If somebody tells them the story, oh, that's not true. But that is the truth. And that's usually the people that are being anti-hunters, they don't want to hear the truth. They don't care about the truth. They just they have their agenda, and that's all that matters.
They're Walt Disney conservationists. They've spent too much time watching these Disney movies and think that these animals just all live in harmony with each other. So it's a battle that hunters have to stick together to win.
Right. And you hit it on the head with Walt Disney. Walt Disney came out with Bambi. And what do you hear most of? Oh, are you going to kill Bambi? What hunter sets out? Who leaves their house to go hunting and says, I can't wait to shoot a baby deer? We're not hunting Bambi. What animal died in Bambi? Bambi's dad. That's what hunters are after. A mature, old animal. Not everybody shoots one because people are out hunting for meat, in whatever reason, but that's the thing. I mean, nobody's going out shooting Bambi. We're hunting mature, animals, trophy animals, meat animals, whatever it may be. They've got this, perception, in their head from Walt Disney, and it's just not correct. It's as far from the truth as it could be.
It's brutal with what the animals will do to each other. The land can only sustain so much. So, it's just a battle that stop and talk to people, educate them when you can, be a good steward of the sport of hunting and show it in a respectful light. Make sure that if you do nothing else to that person when you walk away from them, make sure they're not against hunting. They don't have to like it. Just make sure they're not against it. That's, that's one of the big battles right there alone.
Right. People will always tell, they'll comment, oh, you're a murderer. Listen, I hunt. I'm not shooting every animal that walks past me. I'm out for a specific species or a specific, aged animal. I'm the first person that sees a video of a leopard, attacking a baby antelope, impala. I'm the first person to change it. I don't want to see that. I don't get comfort from that. That is the furthest thing from what I want to see. I have a heart, just because I'm a hunter doesn't mean I'm not a compassionate person. I love animals. When we were in Zimbabwe, all the antelope had just dropped their young. There were baby antelope everywhere. I mean, days old. And it was so nice to drive through the concession and see all these little baby antelope running around. I don't want to see a hyena walking around with holding a baby antelope. That's the furthest thing from what I want. Not hunters aren't murderers. They're just hunters. We're just doing, what people have done for thousands of years.
It's going to be a long battle. I encourage anybody that's a hunter to stop criticizing other hunters. If somebody poaches, they're not a hunter. Criticize them. Point it out. Right. Point it out to the authorities. But if somebody's legally harvested an animal, whether it be a whitetail, whether it be a prairie dog or an elephant or a lion, if it's legally harvested under a sanctioned hunt where they've paid the fees, congratulate them. If you can't congratulate them, pass by. Don't say anything.
Right. I think one of the biggest things that needs to happen, everybody likes sitting down and sharing their hunting stories with other hunters. Talking about hunting, is conservation. What every hunter needs to do is, instead of sharing those stories with another hunter, I'm not saying share your huntings, tell them how you killed it. Share something about hunting with a non-hunter. The more people that are educated educated, the easier this fight will be. And we were at one of the conventions, and, I won't say his name, but he's a conservationist, got up for 20 minutes and told a room full of hunters how we need to use hunting for conservation. You're preaching to the choir.
Right.
Go to an anti-hunting convention and stand up for 20 minutes and explain to them why hunting is necessary. I know why hunting is necessary. I don't need somebody to tell me. So I would encourage every hunter there's a non-hunter out there, stop for 5 minutes and explain why hunting is right, and change people's minds that way. Don't badmouth them because they're an anti-hunter. Make them, like you said, they don't have to hunt, but make them understand hunting and why it's necessary.
All you have to do is look at white-tailed deer in the United States, turkey in the United States.
Almost
all of those were brought back in one form or shape through hunting. It's certainly the conservation groups as well as the hunting dollars and the state wildlife agencies that have helped to propel these species back to a point where I don't think somebody from 300 years ago in this country would realize how many deer this country are actually capable of holding with the same amount of people. Right. It would blow their minds. They would not even be able to fathom it. So if you think that hunters...
Bison is another...
Yeah, bison. They all, in one form or shape, own it to the state wildlife agencies and the hunters' dollars and the conservation group who are doing the actual fighting to keep these species around. And if you protect bison, that creates habitat for mule deer, white-tailed deer, birds, mice. I mean, it covers all of the animals, big and small. It's really a good symbiotic relationship. What I want to tell the listeners is, first, Justin, thank you so much for being on. I really appreciate it. This was a great time talking. Congratulations on the achievement of the Super Slam. I look forward to seeing your pictures on Facebook when you get back from your Lord Derby Eland hunt. And for listeners, you can reach out and contact Justin on Facebook or Instagram. I'll have links to both of those in there. Please go out, read his book. If you have questions on the book, contact Justin. I'm sure he's, would be happy to talk with folks to get any interest up in the hunting world. And then just let us know as you get closer to putting this museum and archery range together. It's going to be an amazing thing for people to go see.
Jayson, thank you for reaching out and inviting me to do this. I enjoy spreading the word about hunting. I enjoy talking about my accomplishments. I love when people message me on social media and ask me about a particular hunt that they want to go on. Listen, I'm not an expert, by any means, but if I've been there and I've done it, I love helping people because it's like everything, there's good outfitters or bad outfitters, and I want to see everybody have a good hunting experience. You can go on one hunt and have a bad time and put a bad taste in your mouth, and it'll keep you from booking that second hunt. But anybody that has any questions, I love responding back. I like pointing people in the right direction, and I enjoy seeing their pictures when they get back from a hunt that was successful. And if there's anything I can do to help anybody, I'm just a message away.
Oh, great. Well, I appreciate the time. We look forward again to following you in the future and having you on later on to talk further adventures you've had and done, and can't thank you enough for your time. It was really a lot of fun.
You're quite welcome, Jayson. Thank you.
You take care.
You do the same.
Thank you.
Come early spring, it's getting green, fish are on the bed, hear those turkeys gobble, it's ringing in my head. The winterized bass boat, here comes another year. Yeah, we command the outdoors round here. We command the outdoors. Yeah, we command the outdoors. Come summertime, we're feeling fine, fishing on the lake, flipping jigs and Carolina rigs, from early morning till real late. Bonfires on the creek bank, kick back a couple beers. Yeah, we command the outdoors around here. Yeah, we command the outdoors. Yeah, we command the outdoors. Next year's doesn't till you know winter's on the way. Brushing blinds and deer stands, the fever starts to creep. Fill our freezers full of ducks, lots of tender deer. Yeah, we command the outdoors around here. Yeah, we command the outdoors. Yeah, we command the outdoors. So grab your guns and shells, boys. Put on your camouflage, 'cause we command the outdoors around here. We command the outdoors.